Hello everyone, welcome to your knowledge lesson today. Before we get started today, I quickly want to review a few of the things we've already learned about. In our very first knowledge lesson in this domain, we learned about our 5 different senses. Do you remember what those senses are? Those 5 senses are touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. In our last lesson, we learned about one of Nick Nutri's personal heroes. Do you remember what his name was? Anton van Leeuwenhoek. That's a bit of a tricky name to pronounce. It is a Dutch name because Anton van Leeuwenhoek was from Holland. Today, we are going to talk about something that I think Anton van Leeuwenhoek would be very excited about. We are going to talk about these. This is a picture of a human cell. Cells are the building blocks that make up all living things. All living things are made of cells. Your bodies are full of these. These are itty bitty, super tiny. You can only see them with a special tool called a microscope. But they are, all living things are made up of millions and millions of these itty bitty cells. The title of today's Read Aloud is Cells and Tissues. We'll be talking about those two things, cells and tissues. Before we get started, we need to talk about some of the big vocabulary words that we'll see today. Our first word is functions. Functions are the roles, jobs, or purposes that support particular activities. For example, some of the functions that trees provide are releasing oxygen to the air we breathe, giving shade and cooling, serving as a habitat for animals, and supplying the resource of wood. The systems in our body all serve different functions. The circulatory system circulates blood through the heart to every part of the body. The respiratory system helps bring air into our body. The digestive system breaks down food into nutrients that our bodies can use. The excretory system gets rid of our body waste. Microscopic. If something is microscopic, it is too small to be seen without the aid of a microscope. For example, the existence of our microscopic cells were unknown before the invention of the microscope. Cells. Cells are the smallest units of living things, the body's building blocks. Our bodies are made up of billions of tiny microscopic cells. Tissue. A group of cells that perform the same job in living organisms. For example, muscle tissue helps our bodies move, allowing us to run and play. Stimulus. A thing or event that starts actions, feelings, and thoughts. A thing or event that stirs up specific reactions in organs and tissues. For example, the bee stings acted as a stimulus, sending alarm signals through nervous tissues to the brain. What do you think of when you hear the word cell? It may be that you think of a cell phone, like this. Telephone companies divide cities, towns, and countrysides into lots of separate areas in order to provide the best service. Each area is called a cell. That's why mobile or movable phones are called cell phones. They use signals from lots of different cells. What do you remember about the hives of honeybees? Their hives are made up of lots of different areas called cells also. Different activities occur in each cell. Another example that might help us understand cells would be a large multi-floor school building that has many classrooms. A teacher is in each classroom, similar to cells lined up one after the other inside of beehives. The word cell describes one of many small parts that form a much larger area. One classroom is like one cell of many cells, or rooms, in a school. Like a honeybee's cell is one of many cells in a hive. But unlike the cells of a beehive, the cells of living things are too small to be seen without the aid of a microscope. Because you're learning about the human body, you may have guessed that we're not going to be talking about cell phones or honeybees today. Instead, we will focus on human body cells. These cells were a mystery to people for thousands of years. No one even knew they existed. The invention of the microscope changed all of that. Microscopes magnify cells, making them big enough for the human eye to see. Last time, I mentioned a man whose book of microscopic organisms, or living things, influenced the work of Anton van Leeuwenhoek. The man was an Englishman named Robert Hooke. In one of Hooke's first experiments with a microscope, he sliced open the stem of a cork plant and placed it under his lens. What he saw amazed him. The cork was made up of tiny walled spaces. These little boxes reminded him of the cells in a honeycomb. Hooke was the first to use the term cell to describe what he saw through the microscope. We still use the word cell today when referring to these tiny little boxes of which all living things, both plants and animals, are made. All living things, no matter how big or how small, are made up of microscopic units called cells. Cells are the body's building blocks, the smallest units of life that can carry out the functions, or jobs, of a living thing. They are so small that they cannot be seen without the aid of a microscope. That is why we call them microscopic. The bacteria that Anton van Leeuwenhoek discovered are one-celled organisms, but most living things on Earth have more than one cell. In fact, some have billions of cells. You are one of those creatures. You have millions and billions, maybe even trillions of cells. You began life as a single cell formed by the joining of two cells, one cell from your mother and one cell from your father. Your parents' two cells merged and became one joint cell, called a fertilized egg. Then, that one cell divided into two cells that divided into two more. The cells divided again and again and again until pretty soon there were billions of cells. Your whole body is made up of these tiny building blocks. The human body is a collection of more than 200 different types of cells. Cells come in all shapes and sizes, depending on the jobs or functions they must perform. Bone cells build bone. Skin cells build skin. And I bet you can guess what muscle cells build. They build muscles. The shape of a cell usually reflects the role it plays in the day-to-day working of the human body. For example, red blood cells are shaped somewhat like shallow bowls. Just like bowls that can be used to hold things like cereal, milk, or ice cream, the bowl-shaped red shells hold and carry nutrients through your blood. Remember, nutrients are nourishing substances that are necessary for the growth of life. Nerve cells have really long tails to send and receive messages quickly. See all of the little branches on this nerve cell? Cells are like tiny chemical factories. Because they are living organisms, they need nutrients and air to stay alive. Your heart pumps blood to cells throughout your body, carrying food and oxygen to each cell. Your cells use these nutrients to form muscles, nerves, skin, and bone, and to help protect your body from disease. Living things do not last forever, though. Body cells have limited lives. Some cells get damaged when you get hurt. Others wear out over time. As cells die, the dead cells are replaced with new cells on a daily basis. This all happens without you even thinking about it or noticing it. That's pretty amazing. Let's look closely at a microscopic section of skin. Skin cells are packed tightly together to form a protective boundary or dividing line between you and your environment. Do you see the layers of cells stacked on top of one another? The old dead cells flake off and form a protective layer for the new cells that are constantly growing beneath. They grow, split, make new cells, and die. Some cells live only for a few days. Others live for years. Cells work together. They are organized into groups of cells that all perform the same function. These groups of cells are called tissue. Tissue is a collection of the same kinds of cells working together to do the same job. There are 4 main types of tissue, and each type serves a different function. The 4 types of tissue are connective, muscle, nervous, and epithelial. Do you have a guess about what connective tissue does? You're probably right. Connective tissue connects. It supports the body and binds other tissue together like glue. Your skeleton is made up of bone, a connective tissue that provides the structure or framework for your body. It contains cells that make the tissue strong and flexible, which means that it's able to bend easily without breaking. Fat is a connective tissue, padding your body and supplying it with energy. You may be surprised to learn that blood is also a connective tissue. This liquid flows throughout your entire body and connects all of its many parts. Muscle tissue helps your body move. It is the softest and most abundant tissue in your body. In this picture, you can see how much muscle tissue there is throughout the whole human body. There are different kinds of muscle tissue. Your stomach walls are lined with smooth muscle tissue that helps digest your food. You would not be alive without cardiac muscle tissue. What does the cardiac muscle do? It is found only in your heart, and its job is to pump your blood. Skeletal muscle tissue moves your bones. The long, thin strands of muscle tissue stretch and shrink in response to messages from your brain. As they shorten, they move the parts of your body. So connective tissue connects, and muscle tissue moves your body parts. The 3rd type of body tissue is nervous tissue. Maybe you can figure out what this one does based on its name. Nervous tissue runs through your body and connects to your brain. Nervous tissue serves as the messengers between your body and your brain. Nerve cells within the nervous tissue sense a stimulus and carry electrical signals to and from the brain. A stimulus is a thing that starts other actions. Examples of a stimulus might include a light, a sound, or a touch. Nervous tissue acts as the body's most important communication system. One example of how nervous tissue works would be when you touch something that is so hot you would burn yourself. Your nervous tissue receives the stimulus of extreme heat. The message is sent to your brain, and your brain sends a message back to the nervous tissue to tell your muscle tissue to jerk your hand away from the hot stimulus. This happens almost automatically without you having to think about it. What about epithelial tissue? That's a pretty big word. Let's say it really slowly. Epithelial. All right, all together, ready? Epithelial. What a big word for tissue that covers and protects. Sheets of cells packed closely together make up epithelial tissue. Does this picture look familiar? Remember, those are the skin cells that form the outer layer of your skin. You're looking at the epithelial tissue that prevents bacteria from entering your body. This thin, tough covering protects your body and its organs. Epithelial tissue is also found inside your body. It forms barriers to protect the inside of your mouth, nose, throat, and stomach. Everything you do, from breathing to eating to running, requires lots of working cells. They are truly the building blocks of your body. Cells are organized into tissues, grouped by the similar jobs that they do. Tissues are organized into groups that work together to do similar jobs as well. You will learn all about these groups of tissues the next time we're together.
All right, my friends, I have got some questions for you about what we learned today. My first question is, what is the smallest microscopic building block of all living things? You got it. The smallest microscopic building block of all living things is the cell. What is it called when a group of these microscopic cells that all have the same job get together? They form tissue. So tissue is made up of cells. Why do we say that those cells are microscopic? Why do we call them microscopic? We talked about the word microscopic way back when we learned about bugs. Microscopic means that whatever you're talking about is too small to be seen without the help of a microscope. We call cells microscopic because we cannot see them unless we are looking through a microscope at them, like the camera was when it took this picture. We talked about 4 different types of tissue. So remember, tissue is a group of cells. We talked about 4 specific types of tissues. The 4 types of tissues that we talked about today were connective, muscle, nervous, and epithelial. What type of tissue is your blood? Is your blood connective? Is it muscle tissue? Is it nervous tissue? Or is it epithelial tissue? Your blood is connective tissue. Why is your blood connective tissue? Your blood connects all of the parts of your body. That's why we call it connective tissue. It connects all parts of your body. Those tiny itty bitty microscopic cells, even though they're so small, they are alive. They are living things. How do we know that these cells are living things? We know that they're living things because just like all living things, they need air and nutrients. We know that they grow, they split, they change, they make new cells, and eventually they will die. All right, my friends, we have got a journal entry today. I am going to jump over to my computer to show you what we're going to be writing about. We talked about cells and tissues today, so our journal entry is, of course, about cells and tissues. This journal entry is going to be a little bit different, though. On this journal entry, we usually do 3 to 5 sentences. On this one, you only have to write 2 sentences. On this one, we only need 2 complete sentences. Those 2 sentences, one should be about cells. What do cells do? What are they? Why are they important? And your other one should be about tissue. What is tissue made of? What does tissue do? Why is it important? Is there only one kind of tissue? I want you to tell me one thing that you learned about cells today and one thing that you learned about tissue. 2 complete sentences, one for each of those things. When you are done with your sentences, your next part, our box on this one is very, very big. I want you to split that box in half. You can split it in half going this way or going this way. I think I'm going to split mine going this way. And on, ooh, that wasn't half, huh? That's okay. On one half, I want you to draw a picture of a cell. And on the next part, the other half, I want you to draw a picture of tissue, of some kind of tissue. So not only are we writing today, but we are drawing cells and tissue. If you would like a reminder of what cells and tissue look like, I'm going to pull up some pictures for you. This is a picture of a human cell. I would pause the video here while you are working on your cell drawing so that you can look back to it. Our next picture is going to be of muscle tissue. This is specifically muscle tissue. Again, while you're drawing tissue, if you would like to draw this muscle tissue, I would pause right here so you can look at it while you're drawing. When you are finished with those drawings and with those 2 complete sentences, go ahead and turn your assignment in for today, and we will see you next time.